There we go. I like to start every class and webinar and Unitarian Universalist meeting with a chalice lighting, because it reminds us that no matter what we're doing, if we're doing the work of our faith, it is holy work, including planning our religious education programs. So I have here a reading from Fred Rogers, our late Presbyterian colleague, and one of my favorite sources of religious wisdom. He says, each generation in its turn is a link between all that has gone before and all that comes after. It is true genetically, and it is equally true in the transmission of identity. Our parents gave us what they were able to give, and we took what we could of it and made it part of ourselves. If we knew our grandparents and even our great-grandparents, we have taken from them what they could offer us too. It all helped to make us who we are, and we, in our turn, will offer what we can of ourselves to our children and their offspring. Well, we are your presenters today, the Sarahs, the two Sarahs who are Congregational Life staff in the Pacific Western region. I'll introduce myself. I'm the Reverend Sarah Movius Schurr, and I have the privilege of being a member of your Pacific Western region field staff team. And I am here because I am the specialist in small congregation life and services to small congregations.
And Sarah, I would add about her experience is she's been the minister of small congregations and had experience in not just the theory, but the practice of what it's like to start these programs. And I'm Sarah Gibb Millspaugh, and I am, like Sarah Schurr, new on the Pacific Western region staff this year. I have been a parish minister and a curriculum developer, and also an instructor in the religious education course that's taught to seminarians in the Boston area before I moved out to San Diego last year. And I, like Sarah, we each work with congregations as their primary contact for all things with a certain group of congregations, but we both have specialties that we serve the entire region with. And my specialty is lifespan faith formation, which is another word for lifelong religious education. It's a privilege to be collaborating with Sarah to bring you this. And I would say that neither of us is like an expert in small congregational programs for all ages. However, we have done a lot of talking and listening and winnowing of resources to try to find things of value that we can bring to you to help spark your imagination, help us all think outside the box a little more, and help us address some of the common challenges that are showing up in our congregations. So we see this as part of a dialogue and would very much, especially for those of you who are in the Pacific Western region, to follow up in conversation with you as you look at what will work in your particular congregation and your particular needs.
Indeed. So we'd like to hear who you are as well. We'll take one at a time, and you'll have to unmute, of course, to share your name, your congregation and its location, and how many children and youth you have on a typical Sunday. And that might be a range. I hear some people have quite the range. So again, one party at a time.
Why don't we go in order of the names? So we'll start alphabetically with Aria Curtis, and if it's difficult to unmute, just type into the chat where you're coming from, your typical weekly attendance of children and youth.
Okay. My name is Aria Curtis, and I am at the Unitarian-Universalist Church of Spokane in Spokane, Washington. And despite the size of our congregation as a whole, we have anywhere from 10 to 25 kids each week.
Great. So now Ashley Egan.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Mhm.
Yes.
My name's Ashley Egan. I am working at Davies Memorial Unitarian Universalist Church in Fort Washington, Maryland, which is just under DC. And right now we have anywhere from 1 to 5 kids who come in, and 3 of them are mine. And the other, and they range in age from 8 to 12, and then we have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Okay, well, thank you. Next is Danielle Bell.
Hi, I'm Danielle Bell. I'm from the congregation, UU congregation in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I would say we have between 2 to 22 children attend. We have a moderate youth group, but it's our children that's sporadic. So we look forward to hearing more about it.
Great, thank you. Deborah Mason.
Hi, I'm from the Unitarian-Universalist Congregation Santa Rosa, and we generally have around 20 to 22 kids on Sunday mornings.
Great, that's Santa Rosa, California.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Deborah. Diane, and I'm not going to say your last name because I don't want to say it wrong.
Yeah, this is Diane Nipfer. I'm in Bozeman, Montana, and our attendance for Sunday school is very sporadic, anywhere from 0 to maybe 4 or 5 but we're meeting currently in a temporary location while our new building is undergoing some renovation.
Mhm.
And so that may be part of our at the moment.
Okay. Thank you, Diane. Emma Linda.
Hi. I'm Emma Linda McLean. I'm the DRE at Emerson in Canoga Park, which is just north of Los Angeles. We've got about 40 kids on the books, and typical Sunday is usually around 10, from 5 to 15 or 16.
Okay, thank you. Glenn Farley.
Hi, I'm Glenn Farley. I'm the minister in Sedona, Arizona at the Sedona UU Fellowship. On average Sunday, we have 1 3-year-old, but we more recently we've had 3 families who have spoken to me and lay leaders who would commit to come at least once a week, and it's like 6 or 7 youth ranging in age from 3 to 11 or so. So
Great, thank you. Heather Rydell. Let's see if she is able to unmute herself. Heather? Heather? I unmuted you.
Hi, I hope.
Yep,
Sorry,
we can hear you.
My phone, but I can see you on the computer.
Okay.
My name is Heather Rydell, and I'm the Religious Exploration Director of the Two Rivers Unitarian Universalist Church in Carbondale, Colorado.
Oh, wonderful.
And we have between 7 or 8 kids, all the way up to about 20, age range 2 to 14.
Okay. Great, thank you. And Indigo.
Hi, I'm Indigo Lewis. I'm at the Vashon Island Unitarian Fellowship in Washington. I'm here with Sheila and Paul. And we have, right now, our typical attendance is between 5 and 9 kids from 3 to 7th grade.
Great, welcome. Jenna Foster.
Hi. I'm the Director of Religious Education at Unitarian Society of Santa Barbara, California. And I oversee the preschool through 8th grade programming. We have 32 children enrolled, ages 2 to, I guess is that 13 in 8th grade? And we have about 16 to 21 kids showing up on Sunday.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jillian Post.
Hi, I'm Jillian Post. I am in East Brunswick, New Jersey, the Unitarian Society. We have about 15 to 18 average, 29 enrolled.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Laura Mensch. Hey, Laura, you're unmuted. We can't hear you. Why don't we go to Laurel Anderson and we'll come back to Laura.
Me.
Hi, Laurel.
Okay. Hi, I'm Laurel Anderson. I am, I guess, a children's religious education person at the Unitarian Universalist West Side Congregation in Rio Rancho, north of Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And our typical weekly really vary. We have one child that is very consistent, another one that is semi-consistent. We can have both of them are like 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a variety of others that come and go between the ages of 6 and 13 or 14. We constantly getting new people coming in saying, with kids wanting something for their kids. So
Okay,
we're looking
great.
for a way to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you very much, Laurel. And now let's go to Fairbanks, Alaska.
Hello. Reverend Leslie here in Fairbanks, and our DRE Molly, and Liz, who's a member of our religious education committee. And about a year and a half ago, our average was around 5-ish, and we've shot up pretty quickly into the 25 to 30 range, although it's still pretty inconsistent. So we're dealing with growth quickly while also still having some small Sundays.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Great to have you here. Patricia Marshall.
Hi there. Yes, no?
Yes, we hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I am a relatively new DRE at the Unitarian Church in Springfield, Illinois. Our issue at this point is that we have a pretty big growth as far as the congregation is concerned, and we have a lot of potential for the kids, but our average is around 23 on Sundays. That would be nursery through senior youth group, but it can vary. We've had as little as 3 and as many as 40.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
we need consistency.
Okay, thank you. And Sylvia Balding? Hey, Sylvia. Let's see. Let me unmute you. Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Sylvia Balding, and we're here in Alameda, California, and I'm part of the committee for the children's education. And we have only about, I would say, 4 to 8 kids, 2 of which are mine,
Mm-hmm.
who attend. And then there's some who come in and out, but 8 is pretty much our max.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sylvia. And I'm going to give Laura Mensch another chance. Laura,
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yay.
I'm also with Unitarian Fellowship in Bozeman.
Oh, great.
And we have, in the more than 2 decades that our family has been members of this congregation, we've seen waves of 10, 12, 15 kids and then down to 1 or 2. And that has happened 3, 4, or 5 times in years. So I'm here with Diane.
Great. Thank you. It's good to have that long view. Yeah.
Thank you both so much for coming.
And Sarah, that is our group. So take it away.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming. Why don't we have more kids? Kids are so cute. We like them. Some communities have mostly retired folks. If you're in a retired community in Florida, the likelihood that you're going to have a lot of kids is low because there aren't that many kids in your congregation or even in your community who might come to your congregation to services, but sometimes there are young families in your area that are not participating in any congregation on a regular basis. And there's some reasons for that. We often think, well, if we just had the right curriculum, if we just had the right teachers, if we just had the right color of paint on the walls, but it's sometimes no one's fault. The old model of religious education as Sunday school is really fading. It's a product of the early 20th century where kids went to school separate from the parents and the generations didn't often mix. So the old Sunday school model, the experts in this field across the different denominations are saying Sunday school is not long for this world. There's some reasons for that. Young families have a different relationship with their congregations than they did in the past. Many of you have heard about the nuns, the people who identify as no particular religious background having grown up. If they come to see us, they have no tradition of regular church attendance. So being UU for them may not be a big priority and not a part of their culture. And going to church is not necessarily a part of their cultural identity. Like, multi-generational Catholic families where they've gone to the same parish since the great-grandparents. That's not so much the case for the nuns who are coming to see us. And also families are different. Parents are so overbooked and kids are overbooked. Sometimes I think soccer is the new church. Kids have a lot of pressure to do extracurricular activities as part of a societal expectations. Parents drive them everywhere, so they no longer walk to things or take their bike to things, but their parents take them. And there are pretty much play dates as opposed to kids playing outside. So parents and families have very structured and busy lives. And also family structures are changing. A lot of families, part of the reason we see this great fluctuation is because a lot of kids aren't in the same house every weekend. They may be with one parent on the first and third Sunday and the other parent on the second and fourth. And so it makes it hard to have consistent church attendance. And also sometimes single parents just can't do it all. They've been busy getting kids to school and going to work, and on Sunday they're just tired. They can't do one more thing. Church is certainly not the only place begging for a parent's time. Schools and community organizations are begging for volunteers and more involvement. Kids have more and more homework than in past generations, so there's a huge increased homework load that sometimes takes up a lot of parents' time and energy. There's the sandwich generation, people who are not only raising their kids but helping their aging parents. And many people have demanding careers that just make it hard for them to have extra time on Sunday morning that they choose to dedicate to regular church attendance. And face it, sometimes a Sunday morning together when nobody has anything scheduled is just a gift, and they just want to spend family time together on the weekend. Those are sometimes, in very busy families, a rare and wonderful gift when everybody's actually together, and they may or may not choose to spend that time with us. So then what is our job as a congregation when it comes to these kids and these families? And we think our job is to support the spiritual development of children and their families through a variety of flexible programs. Flexible programs, some of which might not look like a typical and traditional religious education classroom that you might have seen in generations past. So we're going to go through a number of different things you can possibly do, and some will work for your congregation and some won't. One is multi-age service projects. This works very well when you've got, say, somewhere between 2 and 7 kids maybe that show up on a day. The kids from kindergarten through teens can work together on a project on Sunday morning. And they can be service projects either for the community, or we can learn to raise the future leaders of the congregation and have them do service projects for the congregation. Service projects for the community might be making and filling toiletry bags to give to the homeless shelter. It might mean making homemade dog treats, selling those to the congregation and then giving them money to the local animal shelter. It might mean singing holiday songs at a nearby nursing home. These are things you can do with a group of a group of kids of multiple ages working together as a team, and doesn't take necessarily regular attendance to participate. And then there's service to the congregation. Something I did in Juneau that worked really well. We had the kids decorate get well cards and welcome cards, especially get well cards that then the caring committee would send to people who couldn't come to church. So, you know how many congregations have somebody who sends a card to folks who are sick or in the hospital. We had the kids make those cards, and people loved getting cards made by the congregation's children. In Fairbanks, we had the kids make flower pot chalices, you know, the classic flower pot chalice, you can see them there, and give those to new members at the new member ceremony. That was something the kids did as a service project for the church. And I still have a banged up kitchen table from where in our congregation at home, the junior high kids busted up and melted down old candles from around the church to make new candles for the chalice of the congregation. There's a book with a lot of new ideas on service projects that people can do. It's you can get it from the UUA bookstore, Creating Justice Together. And this book offers ideas not just for congregations, but for families as well. So it's a good little book. A lot of congregations like to do multi-generational worship, where everybody's in the worship service together. They can be very fun. They can be challenging to do well. Some of the things that help a multi-generational worship service go well is if it has lots of music. Music is very invigorating. It should have physical movement included, chances to get up and move around the room, stomp your feet, wave your hands. And kids should be participants, not just observers in these worship services. Sometimes when kids come to a regular worship service that's not geared specifically for children to be there, they just come and sit with their parents. There are ways to help make it easier for everybody. Some congregations make busy bags, little bags of quiet toys that kids can play with while they sit next to their parents in service. And sometimes they make topical coloring pages and hand out these coloring pages with crayons. I saw one family minister once make special orders of service for the children that were easy to follow along and had several opportunities to color that related to different parts of the service. A chalice for the chalice lighting, some musical notes for the hymns, so they could follow along by coloring. Well, the thing about multi-generational services is you have to see what works best in your congregation. In some congregations, they have great luck with these, and in some, they don't work so well. I'll tell you a story, a success story and a not so success story. One success story, I understand the congregation in Utah, in Ogden, Utah, because a lot of the kids from that congregation came out of the LDS tradition where they always have the children in the services. The children were used to worshiping with their families, and they enjoyed the multi-generational services that had special elements that they could enjoy, and they worked very well. There's another congregation I know of where the kids had most of them had come from a large congregation with a big religious education program. And when the kids were suddenly expected to sit in the service with their parents, there was no amount of puppet shows that could make the kids enjoy that, and they demanded to have Sunday school classes back again. Sarah Millspaugh, do you have stories as well?
Well, I have. One of the things that's been very interesting to me is I was a parish minister for about 3.5 years before having a child. And once I had a child, my whole sense of worship became different. And now that I'm working for the region, I bring my kid to worship. He's now 5. And I just noticed that he engages by talking, by moving. You know, when he is not talking and not moving, he's not really engaged. And so I've just been wrestling with that a lot and thinking about how we do multi-generational worship. How do we make safe spaces for kids to engage? And Sarah will highlight a resource, and then I'll share a model that has some ways of doing that.
Indeed. So I think the key here is watch what works in your congregation, because every community is different.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a great new book by Erica Hewitt, Song, Story, and Spirit, about fun and creative worship services for all ages. This book has a lot of worship services that incorporate skits that Erica has written. So there are skits that involve the children in the skit as well as some of the adults in the congregations. There are multi-generational theater productions that are incorporated into worship. One of the things that Erica points out in her book, however, is these are not quick and easy last-minute projects. These take quite a bit of time and preparation to do well. That doesn't mean there's a lot of rehearsal time necessarily, but the preparation to make one of these theatrical services work well is noteworthy and not to be ignored.
And that reminds me, there's another resource. I'll write it in the chat here. It's called A Good Telling by Kristen Meyer, and it's from the UUA bookstore as well. And it talks about how to tell a story really well. You know, how to find out what's a good story for worship, how to use that well in worship, which is helpful for all ages, not just for kids. The adults will like it too. Mm-hmm. A model that I worked with in Winchester, Massachusetts, when I was a co-minister there with my husband, was called Family Worship. And the religious educator who we worked with had brought it with her from another congregation. And what it is, it's a 20-minute worship that's all on its own. We had children in the Sunday service every Sunday, actually, in the main service for the first part up to the time for all ages, and then they went to their religious education classes. And that's how our congregation had done it for a long time. But we decided we wanted to offer something for families that wanted an experience together, and also families that felt really inhibited. I especially sympathize with this now that I of trying to have a worshipful experience while managing a 3-year-old. It's pretty challenging. So families who felt inhibited in the regular service by needing to control their child's behavior, we wanted something for them too. So we started this family worship service. It happened at 10 o'clock when the regular service was at 10:30, and it was 20 minutes in length. So people could go to both services if they wanted to, and several people did. And it's a worship designed for the family to experience together. We designed it for movement and engagement of children that are ages 10 and under. It was fascinating. The first year we had it, the average age was 3. So, I remember one of the first ones I came prepared to talk about Martin Luther King. It was Martin Luther King's birthday, and to talk about segregation and how children helped end segregation, and trying to explain segregation to 3-year-olds was one of the more interesting challenges of my ministry. But I did it. But you really try to design it with the under 10 crowd in mind. And I've experienced family worship at another congregation where the kids were almost all 10, 8, 9, 10 and could read. So you vary it for your people. You get a sense as you go of who your audience is. Sarah, next slide, please. But one of the things we do to make it the most welcoming is you have no reading required. And because in the worship, even in multi-gen worships in most congregations, when the children are in, we still read music. We still have responsive readings. In family worship, the music is taught, call and response. Their songs are kid-friendly. And the stories and the rituals are active. We did joys and sorrows in a way that I had learned when I visited the Unity UU Church up in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is a large church. But they had this ritual for their children's chapel that we brought back to Winchester, which was that there were stones, a big bowl of stones, little stones, and the children could bring them up, and if they had a joy, they'd put them on one side of a scale, like the scales of justice. There was one side that was the joy side and one side that was the sorrow side. And the scale would be set so it wouldn't move until all the kids had come up and either said their joy or sorrow or just put a stone in silently. And then the religious educator would let it go, and you could see which side was heavier. And so if it was more of a joyful week or a sad week or a balanced week, then the leader would create a spontaneous prayer based on that. And the kids loved it. They felt so much a part of it, being able to express their joy or their sadness, and to have a so they're having regular rituals and active stories is good. And it's okay to be wiggly. It's okay to be noisy. But the point of family worship is it's a whole worship. And next slide, please. And there are going to be some people who come just for that. We drew a different crowd than the primary worship service. There was some overlap for sure. But why? What do you think were some of the motivators behind it being a different crowd? Type into the chat if you have some ideas about why this would draw different people. I think part of it was much more accessible. It just something about just a 20-minute thing with the kids made it more accessible. Danielle said curiosity. Yeah, it drew a different crowd from that. Yeah, be quick, be in, be out. Also, one of the things that I found that parents were nervous about was that they didn't know how their kid was going to react if their kid had to leave during the service to go to the RE class. So if they could visit and experience something together, it was easier. Patricia writes, families want the time as a whole and have several people who don't want to dump their kids. Yeah, exactly. And also, it's fun. I want to go. Yeah. So it met different family needs. It drew different people, and it built relationships with the families too, because it was a smaller service where sometimes we would have like 2 kids, even though the RE program I think had 120 enrolled. We'd have maybe anywhere from 2 to 12 kids in the family worship service. It helped us build relationships with them. Someone says it's informal. Someone asked, did we do it in the sanctuary? Well, the Winchester Church had its own chapel that was in the basement, and we had enough, it was like a separate alternative worship space, so that's where we had it, but that's because it's a big old church. And if you don't have that kind of space, I know another congregation near there, the Fallen Church in Lexington, they had theirs in the sanctuary. Part of it we had to juggle where the choir would rehearse and all of those things, because sometimes the choir is rehearsing beforehand.
The Corvallis Church had it in the largest of the religious education rooms before.
Oh, cool.
So it could happen a lot of places.
Yeah. And Danielle says she could imagine adults without children intentionally wanting to connect with families. And that's true. I'll tell you that what we wrote about the service on the website is who's invited? Everyone, of course. If you'd like to come to church but you can't make the later service, come at 10 o'clock for this one. If you're a young family with little ones who'd like to introduce to worship, join us. If you're exploring this community of faith, join us. If you want to fill your cup from the well of community, whatever your age, you are welcome. Okay.
Full week faith is another way to reach out and serve families that are busy and hectic and want to have faith be something that's incorporated into their daily lives in those times when they do have a chance to be together. So your faith, your Unitarian Universalist faith, is not just something that happens on Sunday morning. This is, again, one of the ways to teach our children about Unitarian Universalism, even without Sunday school being the foundational aspect. Because family is truly where faith formation happens. Your parents are your first religious educators. There are myriads of lessons people learn about values and about beliefs that they learn in the family. This actually is my family, practicing a religious activity together. So, full week faith, religious professionals guide and offer resources to parents as the parents being the primary religious educators. family learning is added as it fits into the family schedule, and often these resources are available online. So even if you're busy with soccer or Cub Scouts or some other thing on Sunday morning, you still get a chance to be Unitarian Universalist with your family and keep your children engaged with their faith. Some of the great resources on Full Week Faith are by the FOZ Collaborative, which is a RE think tank. And Karen Beneville Grace has put together these wonderful cards, these Full Week Faith cards, and you can download them from the internet. If you Google Full Week Faith, you can get the article, and it has these cards in it.
I just put the link in the chat.
Wonderful. So there's things that happen at the church and things that happen at home. So it covers a lot of different things. So like, for instance, this one is about finding people being, catching people in the act of being kindness. So you make a blackboard that's at the church that connects people being kind. So you have a blackboard at the church where the staff will talk about common themes of kindness and put up resources. They'll maybe have some "Kacha being good" phrases that go up there, and then families are encouraged at home to make a little blackboard where they also catch people being good, so that the curriculum that's happening in the church is integrated with a religious education curriculum that happens at your own home. This Full Week Faith process is still a work in progress. It's still being perfected, but a lot of people are having great luck with it. Congregations will have links on their webpage for home activities that can be done related to the month's worship theme. So if your church has a worship theme for the month, there will be activities for families to do that they can find online and do as around the dinner table or on their Saturday afternoon walk. The music director may send out a link to songs that are related that the family can listen to in the car. Congregational staff may offer other family activities that can be done during the week that are in the theme of our Unitarian Universalist values. And it's a good place to have a parents' RE blog, a place where the various parents can share the different religious journeys they're on with their children. So that, again, it's also Full Week Faith for the parents, so that the spiritual practice of parenting can be shared amongst the community of parents, even when they can't come to the building on a Sunday morning.
I'm going to talk about curricula and programs that are published that are out there that you can use. And often you are not going to be able to just pick them up and use them as they are. I think that happens in most congregations, but especially in a smaller congregation when you are not sure how many kids you're going to have on a given Sunday, when it could be 2 or it could be 8. You need to plan flexibly and keep things simple. So I'll tell you how you can find simple things. Now, Tapestry of Faith is a lifespan faith development program with lots and lots and lots of different types of curricula that are in it for different age groups, lots of sessions. It can look very intimidating. It's free and online, but if you're logging in there and you're just looking, you say, oh my gosh, I'm downloading this program and it is 300 pages long, that can feel very intimidating. But each of the programs is available to browse through on the web rather than download in full. And as you browse through on the web, you'll notice some things, that each workshop in the sessions can stand alone, that it's designed to do that, and that you can mine it. You can consider yourself a miner of Tapestry of Faith and look for activities and ideas there that could fit your group. For example, every workshop in Tapestry of Faith for children and adults actually has a faith in action component to it, which is an optional activity that focuses on service or engagement, just some kind of action that makes it a little bit bigger than the session itself. So you can find service project ideas there. You can also find taking it home sessions, each has a handout called Taking It Home for the children's programs, and those can be given to parents and caregivers to do UUism at home. So we'll have another section later in this presentation about equipping parents. This is something you can equip parents with, say, if you don't have a big enough critical mass of kids to actually do hands-on teaching, you can help the parents do that. Next slide, please. There are 4 multi-age curricula in Tapestry of Faith: Wisdom from the Hebrew Scriptures, Gather the Spirit, Circle of Trees, and Miracles. And as you can see, they are generally for ages 6 and up, but they're meant for children, youth, and adults to participate in. So if you have just a few kids, using some of these programs can be really foundational for your program, and you can involve adults in it too, in learning side by side with the children and youth. And so then you could do, say if you do Gather the Spirit for ages 7 and up, then you could have a play-based program for younger ages and just have 2 different programs going on. That would be enriching for kids. Next slide. For youth, we have some new tools and some suggestions for how to engage youth when you have just a few kids. There's a brand new journal called To This I Give My Heart it's by Bart Frost, and it's available in the UUA. And it's a coming of age journal to help write a credo and engage in reflection. And if you don't have enough youth for a whole coming of age program, being able to offer this journal and offer some kind of a mentoring program for those youth can be really lovely. Say if you have 2 or 1 even, and you can set them up with a mentor and have them go through this process and give a credo as part of a coming of age ceremony, that can be very beautiful and powerful. The Coming of Age Handbook for Congregations, which I wrote about, almost 10 years ago, has descriptions of mentors and what a mentor's role is and appropriate boundaries for mentors. So that's useful, even if you're not running a whole program. The handbook has materials in it that can be useful to you. Also, Our Whole Lives is something you can collaborate with other congregations on. UU congregations, United Church of Christ congregations. Some congregations that have just a few kids have worked on reaching out and bringing in youth from outside of the UU community to offer Our Whole Lives. And then a bridging program, which is kind of like coming of age, going from age 18 into adulthood. That is something you can also individualize through mentors, through service, etc., to make something really special for a youth who's bridging into adulthood. Next slide. There's also opportunities for adult and youth faith development together. 2 of the Tapestry of Faith youth programs I think would be particularly cool to have adults involved in as well. Building Bridges is a series of world religions workshops. It's kind of like Church Across the Street or Neighboring Faiths, except it's written for an older group, and it's a middle school program. But I think adults could get a lot out of that too. So if you want to have Building Bridges as a program for people of age 13 and above in the congregation, that could be a great way to engage folks. Also, the Families curriculum for youth is one that can engage everyone together in learning about their own and others' families, and it culminates in a photo project, kind of a photo documentary of families in the congregation. So that could be really interesting to explore as a youth adult program. And then there are also multi-generational tapestry programs and the Creating Justice Together, as we mentioned earlier. Next slide. And of course, there are youth programs beyond the congregation. And there is nothing more powerful for UU youth than to connect with other UU youth who are very much on fire about their faith. And it makes it it takes the experience of being UU to a whole different level. There are cluster, district, and national youth programs. There's the College of Social Justice trips, the Thrive Multicultural Leadership School for youth and young adults of color. There's General Assembly, and there's more ways to get involved. Next slide. Another tactic, say if you don't have that much ability to directly work with children and youth in your setting, in your congregation, you can work to equip parents and caregivers. There are a variety of resources that the parents can order from the UUA bookstore, or that you can order for them. The Parent Guide to Our Whole Lives is a real helper for parents of children in kindergarten and first grade, or 4th through 6th grade, even if they're not taking those courses. Even if you don't have critical mass for that, the Parent Guide can help parents be good primary educators in sexuality area for their children. There are also books by Roby Harris and Michael Emberley that go with Our Whole Lives for the younger set. It's Perfectly Normal, and It's Not the Stork, and It's So Amazing. Those are also sold by the UUA bookstore and can be great in supporting parents in their roles as sexuality educators. There's also a program called Love and Help, which is, it's for the Weebelows. It's kind of a do-it-yourself program for ages 7 through 11. There's a UU identity program, and it's a nice workbook, and it's for kids of all genders, not just Boy Scouts, but this is what helps them get the UU badge from the Cub Scouts. So this book just came out. It's hot off the press. To This I Give My Heart, I mentioned that. There's also a book called The Parent Trilogy, which has outlines for classes that a congregation can offer to parents. On parents as spiritual guides, parents as resident theologians, and parents as social justice educators are the 3 programs in that Parent Trilogy. So that can really help your congregation equip parents. We also at the UUA bookstore have a growing collection of children's storybooks that are UU produced and have tales from all around the world and some UU identity tales. So parents and caregivers can really bring Unitarian Universalism home for their kids. And some other cool resources: Church of the Larger Fellowship, which is our congregation without walls that meets online and well, yes, primarily online. They have a thing called Family Quest. And if you go to questformeaning.org, or if you go to YouTube and look for the CLF Family Quest channel, you'll find some really cool stuff. And YouTube is a curated, it's not all UU produced, but it's a curated grouping of videos that share UU values and would be really neat videos for families. And if the children you work with are anything like my child, videos are very exciting. There's also Archives of UU and Me, which is a resource that they produced for years that have fun activities for children. I mentioned the Taking It Home activities from Tapestry of Faith. And the UU World, it only comes out 4 times a year, but there's a section for kids, which can be used to equip parents and caregivers to provide UU resources. I will put up the YouTube search terms soon. I see that question. And then, so another model, this is a way that a lot of our smaller congregations that have just a few kids want to be able to grow and want to be able to attract new people. And as Sarah mentioned earlier, it's more and more challenging these days because a lot of people aren't necessarily searching for a religious home for their family. They don't even know what they could get out of it. And starting specific programs that serve the needs of the parents and families can be a real draw for bringing in people from the community. And because families need connection and support, and they do care about spiritual parenting and connections with their children. And even if they might not see how going to a church or a congregation could help that, how they have a need for specific conversation with other families. So some congregations have had success in starting something like a spiritually progressive parenting group or an interfaith families group. We do that really well, interfaith families, or an LGBTQ families and friends group. And that could have overlap of people who are already in your congregation, but it can be very appealing to people who are beyond your congregation. Next slide. And when you have family nights and parent groups, it's good to remember also what Sarah referred to earlier, that families are very overextended. So if there are ways to make life easier for families, like serve them a meal, don't make it a potluck, don't make them have to rush home from work and grab some chips or throw something together to come. Just, you know, or do something really simple, like heat up a lasagna from Costco and get a prepackaged salad or something, and let people make donations. Anything to make life a little easier for the families. It helps a lot. And have some kind of meaningful program at a family night for people of every age. Make it open to the community and invite folks to your Sunday service, but also let it be okay if they just come to events. Because I think that's another thing we're going to have to normalize going forward, is that not everybody who wants to be part of our congregation and finds meaning and identity in our congregation is going to be a Sunday worship goer. And so being able to recognize that folks at family night are part of the congregation too is valuable and important. Next slide. So a few words about who makes all this happen. You have different structures in your congregations. I was listening to you. You're all different sizes. So you're going to definitely have volunteers involved. Some of you are going to have professionals involved. In terms of the volunteers and choosing good volunteers, it's important that they have some teaching skills, that they are confident and comfortable with age-appropriate ways of relating to people, that they are knowledgeable and dedicated and organized, they follow through on things, all of that. And the professionals who can make it happen could be religious educators or ministers, teachers, no, and they are often held to a different standard and bring a higher skill level, although, you know, not necessarily. I will say ministers may or may not have the best skills with children. And so, you know, some of us do and some of us don't. Next, please. But everybody who leads a program needs to have a level of commitment and competency, but also accountability. And that involves having safe congregations training and commitment to safety practices, like 2 adults or more in the room at all times, and be signing a code of ethics and an understanding of safety and abuse. So they need to assent to the behavioral covenant of the congregation and also undergo a background check. And we have, if you need resources for how to do a background check, we can cook you up with those.
Absolutely. So the role of the church staff, whether it be the DRE or the minister, it says minister here, but I'll include other religious professionals here, that it's our job to help adults learn that it's okay to be religious educators with their children. Some people even need to know that it's okay to be religious with children. Showing children how to be faithful in a way that fits into your family culture. Having it be okay to talk about things like what happens when you die and how do I deal with when I'm scared from a spiritual point of view. Because giving children these religious tools of our faith, we find helps build resiliency, that they can get through the hard times in their life better if they can go to a spiritual grounding to help them with resources and to help build that emotional resiliency and that spiritual strength. Because children are naturally spiritual beings. They just come into the world that way. And adults in their life can shut that down or enhance it. Ministers and other people in the church can help the adults who might have religious baggage. Not that there are any Unitarian Universalists with religious baggage out there, but those who have religious baggage can learn to nurture and appreciate their kids as spiritual beings and not pass that baggage forward.
We'll share some quick resources here. There is a Facebook group called Tiny and Terrific, the UU Small RE Lab. You can check them out on Facebook, assuming you have an account. You do need to have an account to sign on. They're a closed group, which means you can find them, but you can share things there that won't be seen by everyone who is not a member of the group. The UUA Faith Development Office is based in Boston, although there are staff who work all over, and you can find many resources at uua.org/re. And then we have our regional faith formation specialists. I am for Pacific Western, and I have my email there. And I listed the names of those in the other regions because I know we have people from the other regions here as well.